Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Tonight on Our News, we'll tell you when government expects to have enough COVID-19 vaccines for all who wish to be vaccinated. There are 260 bodies currently in the public hospital's morgue as government prepares to take action. Closer look at how COVID-19 related funds were spent. Plus, we'll tell you when our gold medal winners will arrive back home. It's August 11th, 2021. Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. By the end of the month, government expects to have enough COVID-19 vaccines in country for every Bahamian wishing to be vaccinated. This as the country's positivity rate jumped from 3% in February to 21%. Kyle Joaquin has the story.
We will have the capacity to vaccinate all Bahamians and residents who wish to receive the vaccine.
With 128,700 doses of the Pfizer vaccine set to arrive Thursday afternoon, the Prime Minister says there will finally be enough vaccines in country for everyone who wants it. The donation is the first of 397,000 doses the Bahamas is set to get from the United States and will be in addition to the 40,000 Johnson & Johnson vaccines expected by the end of the month.
Mr. Speaker, our vaccine supply will allow us to give a significant percentage of our population protection. And this will in time lessen the likelihood that we will have a large-scale surge that causes extremely high hospitalization.
Children ages 12 to 17 will also be allowed to take the Pfizer vaccine with the permission of a parent. It comes as Bahamians rush to vaccination sites in droves amid a third surge in cases. Now, there have been Bahamians who have traveled to the U.S. to get the Pfizer vaccine. We asked Wells whether they can sign up for their second dose of Pfizer here at home.
We would want them to let us know, provide evidence that they would have taken that first dose in the United States. And obviously the Bahamas government then will seek to give them that second dose of Pfizer so that they can become fully vaccinated.
Wells was also asked how soon Bahamians can get the Pfizer vaccine.
I would assume that next week it's going to be a part of the overall portal for vaccination where folks can choose Pfizer or AstraZeneca. And by the end of the month, we're also going to have Johnson & Johnson.
With all those vaccines in country, the government has set a goal to vaccinate 3,000 Bahamians daily. But things also got heated in Parliament after ministers blasted the opposition, led by PLP leader Philip Davis, for its cooperation or lack thereof during the state of emergency.
You would remember that when we wanted to close the bars, you wanted the bars to be opened.
What we were demonstrating is how this government, as has been their governing over the last 4 years, catered to special interests. They allowed one bar owned by a specific donor of theirs out there in life community open, while others over the hill remain closed.
And it didn't end there.
The order clearly required people to wear masks. You voted against it. So you were saying no.
I'm going to come in here with my mask to tell you that is a lesson.
Again, the Prime Minister says by the end of the month there should be enough vaccines in country for anyone who is interested. For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Maintaining his stance on the emergency orders, opposition leader Philip Davis told parliamentarians the opposition will not support another extension. However, he says the opposition does support the Public Health Emergency Preparedness and Management Bill, which will replace emergency orders.
And so, Mr. Speaker, the Bahamian people have a right to ask, have these vast powers been used wisely and in their best interest? We now have 1 year and a half of evidence. We now have 1 year and a half of evidence. And tragically, the answer is no.
Davis also taking some time in his contribution to encourage Bahamians to get vaccinated. Well, a breakdown of the Auditor General's report revealing that only 7% of the borrowed $250 million from the International Monetary Fund went to COVID-19 related payments. Jillian Gray takes a look.
The citizenry is going to want to know how its monies are being utilized. This was a loan at very low cost, but it still was a loan that's going to require repayment, and that repayment is going to come from taxes.
The government borrowed $250 million from the IMF in 2020 to address financial needs from the COVID-19 pandemic and revenue shortfall from Hurricane Dorian. But a breakdown of the top three disbursements revealed that 28%, or $69,917,701, was spent on state-owned enterprises. 20%, or $50 million, was spent on treasury bills, and 10%, or $23,788,342, was spent on Hurricane Dorian-related payments. COVID-19-related payments came in at 7.16%, or $17.89 million.
I think it's an indication that we need more attention to how monies are used and then how those monies are allocated. The government has done a better job in providing information through the fiscal transparency, fiscal responsibility legislation, and the subsequent reports. But as it relates to things like the state-owned enterprises, more information is going to be required.
The Auditor General noted that while he was provided with the list of suppliers that receive payment for the delivery of goods and services related to COVID-19, he's still waiting disclosure of the beneficial owners of those businesses.
While there is no law which imposes mandatory disclosure of beneficial ownership, Aubrey says ultimately it all boils down to transparency and good governance.
As a smaller island developing state, the Bahamas won't have this interrelation. You know, you may have the same name as somebody who's in power. You may have a connection that is the same owner as somebody who's been elected as an MP. You may have contracts being given to the same places. What needs to be seen is why those decisions were made. Are they defendable? Is it a clear indication that this was the best possible use of that money?
A performance audit analyzing value for money and assessing the delivery of payments and contractual projects at minimal cost is expected to be submitted once complete.
It clears the air in some ways. And I think that's really the lesson that comes out of the Auditor General's report, is if we follow that direction, then we should address beneficial ownership.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
Former Minister of Health Dr. Dwayne Sands is defending government from criticism after an Auditor General report revealed the beneficiaries of government COVID contracts weren't reported to him. He says that list is still pending.
The fact that at the time of the audit that the beneficial owners of the particular companies was not available does not mean that there has been an attempt to hide that information. It may simply be that it's not recorded in the records. And I'm sure that once those issues are brought up, they're investigated, you will find that there has been no subterfuge, no sleight of hand, no skullduggery.
The Auditor General report details how the government spent an emergency $250 million loan from the International Monetary Fund, or IMF. However, the report doesn't say who all of the beneficiaries of contracts were. Critics say it's evidence there isn't full transparency when it comes to the awarding of government contracts. But Sands says the start of the pandemic was a hectic time.
There may be less than ideal record keeping, but let's go back to the early days of the pandemic. It was wild, and trying to source PPEs, trying to source lab reagents, trying to source swabs, trying to make sure that the country was prepared to deal with the scourge of what was then called novel coronavirus.
And Tropical Storm Fred sets his sights on the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Here in the capital, some sun and showers. Greg Thompson has the latest in the Weather Center.
Christina, welcome everybody for your Wednesday's first look at weather. Warm conditions and quiet weather around the islands right now. Temperatures in the mid-80s, 84 outside our studios. Few clouds, we call it warm. Winds are out of the east at 7 knots and your feels-like temperature in the mid to upper 80s. Satellite view, we are all tracking what's happening down towards the southeast Bahamas. Clouds and weather associated with that tropical storm Fred now approaching the southeast Bahamas, and it will continue to spread across parts of the chain throughout the night and into tomorrow. That's your first look at weather. Stay with us. We'll tell you more about Tropical Storm Fred and its effects on the Bahamas. Christina?
Still to come on our news, one man dead and another in hospital after a shooting outside a home. Plans to celebrate our gold medal winners, and the Public Services Union reveals how many members will get their COVID honorarium. That's coming up when our news returns. Former Minister of Health Dr. Dwayne Sands says government's priority right now should be dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. That statement was part of his response to a suggestion that the third wave was intensified when the Prime Minister shifted focus to re-election. Jared Higgs tells us more.
The Nassau Guardian's National Review details how back in June, as the Delta variant was rearing its head in Florida, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis was shifting focus, telling vaccinated people to party on and announcing plans for a vaccination day. By early July, plans for an early election were in full swing, with the Prime Minister urging Bahamians to get registered to vote.
The New York Times today lists the ranking of countries by number of cases per 100,000. Of the 190 plus countries in the world, the Bahamas is in the top 25 in terms of number of cases of COVID per day.
But an explosion of cases in July going into August has shifted the focus back on managing the pandemic.
Whether we're in government, in the executive, in the legislature, in the opposition, civil society, in the church, we should be laser focused on dealing with the scourge of COVID as the single priority, the number one priority in this country.
But Minister of National Security Marvin Dame says it's personal responsibility that's caused the increase in cases. He says people aren't following the restrictions.
There are persons not adhering to the orders. There are persons not wearing masks. There are persons seeking to evade the orders.
Citing an example, Dame says people looking to have parties are using tricks to avoid detection.
People are actually renting homes and having large parties, and in order to evade the authority, they will have someone who may be responsible for valeting the cars and taking them out of sight to give the impression as if nothing is happening at a particular residence. But this is just one example of us not taking this very seriously.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
Meanwhile, there are 260 bodies in the morgue at Princess Margaret Hospital awaiting collection, far beyond its capacity of 75, according to Health Minister Renward Wells, who says it's due to families waiting for a more opportune time to bury their loved ones.
Overcrowding, Mr. Speaker, is not due to COVID-19 deaths, but rather to individuals waiting for what they deem a more appropriate time to bury their loved ones. There are currently 260 bodies at the morgue.
The Public Hospitals Authority has sent out repeated calls for families with deceased relatives in the morgue to make arrangements to have them collected. Wells says if they are not collected, government will have to take the appropriate course of action.
To assist this dilemma, PHA secured refrigerated trailers to increase the capacity to 170 persons, and that is insufficient. I urgently employ our people to come so that they may bury their loved ones. If the current state of affairs continues, the government will take the legal means it has used and employed in the past to alleviate this circumstance.
In other news, one man is dead and another injured during a shooting in Elizabeth Estates on Wednesday morning. Both men were shot multiple times just steps away from their homes, leaving neighbors and loved ones in mourning. Giorgio Bain reports.
The two men, believed to be in their early 30s, were standing outside a home this morning on Commonwealth Boulevard when police say a small car pulled up and a man opened fire on them.
Two males were standing outside residence number 33 Commonwealth Boulevard when a small Japanese vehicle pulled up. A male exited armed with a firearm and discharged a weapon in their direction, causing injuries to both males. Paramedics were called to the scene where they examined both males. One they pronounced lifeless, the other was transported to hospital. He is listed in stable condition.
Police giving few details on scene this morning.
The ages we don't have.
Any idea what kind of firearm was used?
The only thing we could say a firearm was used, but the nature of the firearm we are unable to disclose that at this time.
The two men were shot in the yard just behind me. Now, while police could not offer any identity, we spoke to neighbors and family members who said that they were just two men who were trying to get their lives on the right track.
Kendall Lewis of the Elizabeth Estates Association says the shooting was very personal for the organization and the community at large. Lewis described the men he says he grew up with as souls trying to find their way.
Sometimes we are all marked by our past, not being given a chance to revive from our past.
The surviving victim was identified by his godmother, Desiree Newbold, as Leonardo Lewis. Newbold says both men were well liked.
Leonardo was a passive, humble person. The thing is, all I could say, wrong place, wrong time.
Reporting for our News, I'm Giorgio Bain.
A 17-year-old boy today charged with murder, appearing before Magistrate Samuel McKinney. Prosecutors allege that the teen is responsible for the August 4th murder of Rudolph Roberts. According to initial police reports, officers responded to gunshots in the area and found the body of a man lying on the ground with gunshot wounds. He was pronounced dead on the scene. In court today, the teen was not required to enter a plea and bail was denied. His attorney informed the court that she was in possession of a doctor's letter requesting that he be remanded to the Sandilands Rehabilitation Center due to his mental condition. Magistrate McKinney said he will inquire if SRC is able to house him due to the nature of his crime. Until then, the teen is remanded to the Juvenile Center at the Bahamas Department of Corrections until November 9th. When our news comes back from the break, PAHO sounds the alarm on rising COVID cases, plus when our gold medal winning athletes will be back in town. The details when our news returns. This is our news. Welcome back. COVID-19 cases and deaths continue to rise across the Americas as the Delta variant circulates. However, vaccination rates remain low, including here in the Bahamas. Pan American Health Organization Director Dr. Carissa Etienne says the more populous islands in the Caribbean are seeing a spike in cases.
Are rising in Cuba, Jamaica, and Puerto Rico, as well as in Martinique and the Bahamas.
Etienne says fewer than 20% of people in Latin America and the Caribbean have been fully immunized. In some countries, that number is less than 5%.
Although cases are surging in some areas, there is clear evidence that wherever vaccines are available, they limit severe illness and save lives.
As the Prime Minister and Minister of Health have indicated that the Bahamas expects to have enough vaccines in country for everyone who wants to be vaccinated by the end of August. Well, the Bahamas Public Services Union expressing frustration after multiple attempts to meet with Health Minister Renward Wells regarding COVID-19 honorariums. According to the union president, Kimsley Ferguson, of the more than 3,400 members at healthcare facilities on New Providence and Grand Bahama, only 872 were approved for the honorarium.
The union is this morning very concerned that key persons like radiology, the lab, pottering, housekeepers, laundry persons, and a number of whom would have been impacted by COVID-19 as a result of direct contact with COVID-19 patients.
Some ancillary nurses were also left out. Ferguson says if the minister had met with the union, then the matter could have been resolved by now. But the health minister sees things a bit differently. He says the honorarium was never intended for all healthcare workers.
Honorarium was a gift from government, initially for those who worked directly on the front lines in regards to COVID. Those decisions were made by the individuals who were chosen for the honorarium. Was done so by those who are the supervisors in the requisite sectors of the healthcare sector, who would have put forward their members, who would have said these are the heroes and sheroes who worked on the front line in regards to COVID-19.
The latest on Tropical Storm Fred is still ahead and getting ready for a celebration of athletes. That's coming up when our news returns.
The Great True True Bahamian Treasure Hunt is here, where you can win great vacation prize packages to hotels throughout the Bahamas. Watch Our TV on weeknights between 6 and 11 p.m. for your 10 True True Bahamian clues. Take note of your answers and clues. You never know, you might see the same clue twice. Follow Our TV Originals on Facebook to submit your correct answers before 11 a.m. every Saturday. Watch Our News Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. to see if you are the weekly winner. If you didn't win, watch for clues next week because the contest runs all summer long. Go to Our TV Originals Facebook page for more information and contest details.
Welcome back to our news. Based on the projected track of Tropical Storm Fred, we may begin to feel the effects in the Bahamas by Friday. Greg is back in the Weather Center with the details.
Christine, and welcome back everybody for your second look at weather. We are tracking Tropical Storm Fred, which is now moving into the Dominican Republic with 45-mile-per-hour winds towards the west-northwest at around 16 miles per hour, and it's starting to interact with the island of Hispaniola. Very tall mountainous terrain across portions of that island, and we expect the system to weaken as it moves towards the west-northwest overnight and into tomorrow. Should emerge off the north coast of Haiti by tomorrow morning and into the southeast Bahamas. So some showers and thunderstorms out ahead of the system and well to the north will be spreading across the southeast and central parts of the Bahamas as the system continues to track towards west-northwest. Once it gets back into the warmer waters of the southeast Bahamas, we expect some re-strengthening, so the system is expected to generate some more strong winds across portions of the Bahamas, so we're asking you to continue to monitor the progress of this system as it continues to track towards the northwest-northwest. This is how the track shapes up. By 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, we expect that system to be across the southeast Bahamas, moving into the central Bahamas by Friday morning, and then by Saturday, we expect it to be just to the west of Andros. So this track will keep it to the south and west of us and out of the Bahamas most of the time. Rainfall, we expect anywhere from 1 to 2 inches with this system across the southeast Bahamas, and we could see some isolated amounts of up to 5 inches. So flooding will become a problem. So southeast and central Bahamas, you guys are going to see basically the bulk of the rainfall. So make sure you exercise caution and remain vigilant for possible flooding in some low-lying areas. Boating forecast for the northwest Bahamas tonight through tomorrow. Your winds will be out of the northeast to east at 15 to 20 knots. Seas running 4 to 7 feet over the ocean. Small craft caution in effect for you guys. While in the central and southeast Bahamas, we're asking you boaters to remain in port. Winds will be east to southeast at 20 to 30 knots. Very rough seas at 8 to 12 feet. So do exercise extreme caution. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Monday. We will continue to track Tropical Storm Fred and keep you updated on any changes. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Greg. Well, it will be a celebration tomorrow as Olympic 400-meter gold medalists Shawnee Miller-Weibo and Stephen Gardner are expected to arrive in the capital after their impressive performance at the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. Youth Sports and Culture Minister Iram Lewis says the duo is expected to arrive tomorrow afternoon.
My ministry has begun early planning celebrations for the athletes upon their return. Some have gone on to other competitions while others have returned to school. We will therefore attempt to have as many of them available where the country can collectively express their well wishes. A date for this will be announced at a later time. In the interim, our 2 gold athletes, along with 1 or 2 others, will touch down tomorrow at the Linden Finland International Airport around 12 noon, where they will be warmly greeted with the sounds of Junkanoo and waving flags.
After a short press conference, the gold medalists are also expected to make courtesy calls on the Governor General and Prime Minister. Lewis congratulated the Bahamas Olympic Committee. The latest 2 gold medals now place the Bahamas as the world leader in gold medals per capita with 8 gold medals. Well, thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Christina Dragovich. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.